What really happened to Happy Eater? The shocking truth behind Britain's most beloved roadside restaurant chain will absolutely floor you. Remember those red and yellow signs with that bizarre grinning face? The chain vanished through corporate betrayal and catastrophic mismanagement. But here's the twist. Happy Eater was actually the more upmarket brand than Little Chef when it was stabbed in the back. Prime Minister John Major's favourite breakfast spot didn't fail. It was murdered by television executives who destroyed both chains in pursuit of efficiency, turning 439 thriving restaurants into nothing. Cast your mind back to 1973. The oil crisis was hitting Britain hard. Motorways were still relatively new, and if you wanted a decent meal while driving, your options were basically greasy spoon transport cafes or overpriced hotel restaurants. Enter Michael Pickard, a man with a grudge and a brilliant idea. Pickard wasn't just some random entrepreneur. He'd been a managing director at Trust House Forte, one of Britain's biggest hospitality companies. But when Trust Houses merged with Forte in 1972, Pickard had what sources describe as a personality clash with Sir Charles Forte himself. Rather than sulk about it, Pickard decided to get revenge the best way possible, by creating a direct competitor to Forte's prized Little Chef chain. Working with Courage Brewery, part of the Imperial Group, Pickard set up shop in what would become known as Pickard House in Epsom. His first Happy Eater opened in May 1973 in Ripley, Surrey, a modest 60-seat restaurant that would spark a roadside revolution. Two more quickly followed near Ashford in Kent and Crawley in West Sussex. The genius of Happy Eater wasn't just spite-driven determination. Pickard had studied the American Howard Johnson's chain and realised British families were being completely ignored by existing roadside dining, while Little Chef was trying to serve businessmen with their Olympic breakfast. Pickard said, "Forget the suits, let's serve families." The branding was inspired. That red smiling face with its finger pointing to its mouth, simultaneously bizarre and memorable, became as recognisable to British motorists as any major brand logo. The mascot appeared on everything from signage to pin badges, toy cars, and even caps that proclaimed, "I'm a Happy Eater." By 1980, Happy Eater had grown to 21 restaurants, primarily in the southeast. That's when things got interesting. Imperial Group bought the chain and immediately formed a partnership with Esso petrol stations. This was the rocket fuel Happy Eater needed. New locations started popping up faster than mushrooms after rain. Right, before we reveal how this promising British success story turned into corporate murder, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Because what's coming next includes a Monopolies Commission investigation, a planned video game that never saw daylight, and the shocking revelation that Granada's master plan would eventually kill two restaurant chains. By 1986, Happy Eater had expanded to an impressive 85 restaurants under Imperial Group's ownership. The chain was absolutely flying. Parents magazine had declared it the best restaurant chain for families in 1983. The Daily Mirror called it the best roadside restaurant chain in 1991. They weren't just competing with Little Chef, they were winning. The restaurants themselves were a masterclass in knowing your audience. Those famous animal-themed playgrounds weren't just random additions. Created by Design and Creations, a company that normally built pub playgrounds, these fiberglass masterpieces featured massive elephants you could climb, rope bridges and themed climbing frames. They were strategic weapons in the battle for family loyalty. Inside, the restaurants were a riot of yellow. Yellow light shades hanging from the ceiling, yellow formica tables with bright red plastic edging and steel legs. It looked like sunshine had exploded, which was precisely the point. They handed out Lego and games, sold a cassette called Mr. Happy's Fun Tape in partnership with Chessington Zoo, and created menu items with names that made kids giggle. The menu was brilliantly pitched. The Happy Eater Fast Fry competed directly with Little Chef's Olympic breakfast. The Banger Bake became legendary among truckers. Children's meals had names like Dog's Delight, Little Porkers, and Mr. Happy's Ice Cream. They served proper fish and chips, chili con carne, passion cake, and even attempted exotic items like breaded baby sweet corn. By 1991, you could get a cup of tea for 75 pence, burger, chips and dessert for £2.90, or pancakes with maple syrup for £1.55, marginally cheaper than Little Chef and with more variety. Then came August 1986, and everything changed. Hanson Trust had acquired Imperial Group and decided to offload the hospitality businesses. Trust House Forte, yes, the same company Pickard had left in a huff 14 years earlier, bought Happy Eater for £14.2 million. The irony was delicious. Sir Charles Forte now owned his former employee's revenge business. The company that owned Little Chef now also owned its biggest rival. To truly understand what we lost, you need to picture a typical Happy Eater visit in its heyday. Sunday afternoon, 1989, you're driving down the A1, the kids are getting restless, and then you spot it. That hexagonal building with the bright yellow and red signage, the grinning face beckoning you in like a roadside beacon of sanity. Pull into the car park, and the first thing you'd notice were the outdoor play areas. These weren't just swings and slides knocked up by the local handyman. Design and Creations had created proper adventure playgrounds with massive fiberglass animals. Elephants with slides coming out of their trunks, climbing frames shaped like jungle gyms, and equipment that would make modern soft play centres jealous. Each location had different themes, making every Happy Eater stop a unique adventure. Inside, the assault on adult sensibilities continued gloriously. Those yellow light shades weren't just yellow, they were aggressively, unapologetically, almost radioactively yellow. The whole place hummed with the energy of barely controlled chaos, and parents loved it because it meant their kids were happy. Right, pause for a second. I want you to do something. Close your eyes, go on, actually do it, and try to remember the smell, that unique Happy Eater smell. Was it chips, cleaning products, that weird carpet they all had? Can't quite place it, can you? But you know there was a smell. Every Happy Eater had it. That's what we're talking about here, not just a restaurant, but a full sensory memory burned into a generation's consciousness. Now, where were we? The staff wore uniforms with that grinning face embroidered on the pocket, and they'd been trained specifically in family service. Unlike Little Chef's formal waitress service, Happy Eater operated a hybrid model. Counter service for speed, but with staff who'd bring your food over and actually seem pleased to see children. They'd hand out colouring sheets and crayons before you'd even ordered, and there was always a basket of Lego bricks near the till. The menu told its own story. Adults could order proper meals like the banger bake or fish and chips, while kids chose from entertainingly named options. The Knickerbocker Glory, the towering ice cream sundae that was a British institution, came in glasses so tall they needed special long spoons. Everything was designed to make the experience memorable for families. But here's what really set Happy Eater apart. The details that showed they actually understood families. Baby-changing facilities in both toilets, revolutionary for the 1980s, high chairs that actually worked, and tables positioned where parents could watch the outdoor play area while drinking their tea in peace. The merchandise was genius marketing. Those I'm a Happy Eater badges came in different designs, collect them all. The caps were proper adjustable baseball caps. They sold die-cast model cars of Happy Eater delivery vans. The Mr. Happy's Fun Tape cassette, created with Chessington Zoo, featured stories and songs perfectly timed for car journeys. Each side lasted about 30 minutes, just long enough between Happy Eater stops. By 1986, the average spend was just £3 per person, about £9 today. But with families of 4 or 5, that added up. More importantly, those families came back week after week. It wasn't just a restaurant, it was a ritual. Even royalty noticed. Princess Diana and young Prince William visited the Astwick branch in 1990. Followed by John Major's famous breakfast stop in February 1991 at the Doncaster location. The Monopolies and Mergers Commission immediately launched an investigation when Trust House Forte bought Happy Eater. Here was one company owning both major roadside restaurant chains in Britain. But in a decision that would prove catastrophic, the Commission concluded there was no threat to public interest. Trust House Forte promised to run both brands separately. Internal documents from the period reveal something fascinating. They positioned Happy Eater as their upmarket offering. Happy Eaters had more spacious dining rooms than Little Chef's, separate kitchens rather than serveries, and those superior play areas. Forte wanted to expand Happy Eater to 200 branches, treating it as the middle ground between Little Chef and their Harvester brand. For a few years, it actually worked. Happy Eater continued expanding, reaching 90 outlets by 1988. They introduced a Mark II era redesign in 1989, trialled at Peterborough and Colsterworth, with sofas and stools creating a less formal atmosphere. Some fascinating projects were started, including a Happy Eater video game that got quite far into development before being cancelled. The game engine was later reused for the Dizzy series. The chain's position as the family favourite was cemented when busy Sundays saw Happy Eaters packed with families heading out of town for the day, while weekdays brought businessmen who appreciated the quick service and reasonable prices. If you're enjoying this nostalgic deep dive into British roadside history, give this video a thumbs up and drop a comment below with your Happy Eater memories. Did you collect those I'm a Happy Eater badges? Did you ever play on those mad fiberglass elephants? We read every single comment, and the best stories might feature in our follow-up video. Everything started unraveling in 1995 when Granada, yes, the television company that made Coronation Street, launched a hostile takeover of Forte. Granada already owned motorway service stations and fancied themselves as hospitality experts. They looked at Happy Eater and Little Chef and declared both brands tired. Now here's where it gets properly controversial. Granada didn't see two different brands serving different markets. They saw inefficiency. They believed in what they called the power of a strong brand and economies of scale. Translation: they wanted one chain they could milk for maximum profit with minimum effort. In October 1996, Granada announced their decision. Every single Happy Eater would be converted to Little Chef or closed. No consultation, no trial periods, no testing consumer reaction, just a corporate decree that eliminated a brand that had been serving British families for 23 years. The conversion happened with brutal efficiency through 1996 and 1997. Yellow colour schemes were ripped out and replaced with Little Chef's tired burgundy and cream. Those magnificent animal playgrounds? Torn down because they didn't fit the Little Chef brand image. The varied menu? Replaced with Little Chef's standard offerings. Prices went up across the board. Before the takeover, Forte had actually put together a plan to sell both chains to Whitbread. If that had happened, Happy Eater might still be with us today. What happened next should be taught in business schools as a cautionary tale. Granada had created an absolute disaster. They now had Little Chef restaurants that had been specifically built to compete with other Little Chef restaurants just down the road. In some towns, you could find 2 or 3 Little Chefs within a few miles of each other. Worse, Happy Eater's loyal customer base felt completely betrayed. Families who'd been visiting the same Happy Eater for years suddenly found their familiar restaurant had been transformed into something that thought doilies and table service were what motorway travellers wanted. The Sunday family trade disappeared almost overnight. The financial results were catastrophic. Customer numbers plummeted at converted sites. The oversaturation meant restaurants were cannibalizing each other's trade. What had been a profitable chain was hemorrhaging money. Granada's efficiency destroyed both brands. Little Chef limped on, changing hands multiple times, shrinking from its peak of 439 restaurants to eventual closure in 2018. The last Little Chef closed its doors, having never recovered from the Happy Eater conversion disaster. The Happy Eater rights are currently owned by Kout Food Group in Kuwait, the same company that owned Little Chef until its demise. They closed their UK offices in 2020, meaning the Happy Eater trademark sits registered from Kuwait, gathering dust. There's been a fascinating development though. In February 2023, a new roadside restaurant chain called Brightside opened its first location in a former Happy Eater building near Exeter Racecourse. The founders explicitly cited Happy Eater as one of their inspirations. The cultural impact continues. The 2020 Amazon series Truth Seekers featured an abandoned Happy Eater. The 2022 show The Curse recreated one. The 2025 film 28 Years Later features a derelict shell garage with a Happy Eater attached, with a track called Happy Eater on the film's orchestral score. Former employees and customers share memories online. Those original badges, caps and toy cars now sell for serious money on eBay. The distinctive hexagonal building shape can still be spotted at various locations, and at some sites you can still see the outline where the Happy Eater logo once was. Ghost signs of happier times. The logo itself underwent one final indignity before disappearing. In 1993, they actually redesigned it to remove the pointing hand. Apparently someone finally noticed it, looked like the mascot was trying to induce vomiting rather than eating. By then, most branches had already been converted anyway. The original 1986 film, Mona Lisa, features a scene filmed in a Happy Eater, now a piece of British cinema history. Even contemporary restaurants can't escape Happy Eater's shadow. There's now an unrelated American diner using the Happy Eater name, serving burgers and thick shakes, trading on nostalgia for a brand they never were. It's both flattering and frustrating for those who remember the real thing. The Happy Eater story perfectly illustrates how corporate consolidation destroys what makes brands special. Granada saw two restaurant chains and thought, inefficiency. They missed that Happy Eater and Little Chef served completely different customers, wanting completely different experiences. Happy Eater understood something corporations still struggle with. Sometimes efficiency isn't everything. Those inefficient play areas, the varied menu, the informal service style, they weren't bugs, they were features. They're what made families choose Happy Eater, even when it meant driving further. The real tragedy is Happy Eater had evolved with the times. The Mark II redesign showed they understood changing tastes. The partnership with Chessington Zoo, the merchandise, the constant menu innovation. This was a brand that knew how to stay relevant. Consider the numbers. Trust House Forte was planning to expand Happy Eater to 200 locations, seeing it as their premium roadside offering. Instead, Granada's consolidation took the combined chains from a peak of 439 restaurants to complete extinction by 2018. That's not just business failure, that's the systematic destruction of decades of brand equity. The same mistake keeps happening. Look at how Walmart destroyed ASDA's unique British identity, or how private equity firms gut successful restaurant chains for quick profits. Granada even repeated their own mistake, buying AJ's Family Restaurants in 1998, founded by former Happy Eater directors, and immediately converting all 15 sites to Little Chefs, learning absolutely nothing from their previous disaster. The Happy Eater tragedy isn't about market forces or changing tastes, it's about corporate vandalism. Granada destroyed two thriving chains through pure stupidity, taking 439 successful restaurants to zero because they valued spreadsheets over families. Next time you're paying ridiculous prices for awful motorway food, remember, Happy Eater proved it didn't have to be this way. We had affordable, family-friendly dining that actually worked. Those grinning red faces weren't just logos, they were promises of decent meals and happy memories. The rights still exist in Kuwait. The gap in the market remains. The hexagonal buildings still stand empty along the A1. If you enjoyed this shocking deep dive, subscribe and hit that notification bell. Drop your Happy Eater memories in the comments below. Next week, we're exposing what really killed Woolworths, and it's worse than you think. Until then, remember Happy Eater, because Granada certainly wants you to forget. Cheers.